In 1976, Xavier Roberts, a 21-year-old art student at a Georgia missionary school, was so inspired by the cute Doll Babies line created and sold by Kentucky craft artist Martha Nelson that he decided to, well, let's say, borrow the idea and her designs. Roberts hand-stitched versions which he called Little People, and like Nelson's Doll Babies, he included birth certificates and adoption papers with each doll. Roberts first sold his custom Little People dolls at local arts and crafts stores, before converting an old Georgia medical clinic into a toy store, where his sales really took off. By 1981, Roberts' regional success had garnered enough attention in the toy world that he was approached by the successful leather company turned toy company, Coleco, who wanted to mass-produce and market Roberts' dolls on a national level. Famed doll designer Judy Albert worked on an important redesign, creating cloth dolls with plastic heads, featuring cuter features and more realistic toddler proportions. And before Coleco rolled the line out to toy stores around the country, there was one more significant change, renaming them the Cabbage Patch Kids. They were an almost immediate gigantic success, one of the biggest defining toy lines of the 80s. Between 1983 and 1986 in particular, they were some of the highest sought-after Christmas gifts around, and it wasn't uncommon to see news stories about actual riots that had broken out in toy stores where parents fought over the limited supply. During this period, Martha Nelson also sued Xavier Roberts for plagiarizing and, as she saw it, corrupting her original Doll Babies line. The matter was settled out of court, and even if it gained some media attention, it wasn't enough to stop the Cabbage Patch Kids' runaway success. As Martha Nelson herself could tell you, in the toy world, one of the clearest signs of success is imitation, and sure enough, the Cabbage Patch Kids ultimately had their own imitators. Most notably, in 1985, the same year Nelson filed suit against Roberts, Hasbro introduced a doll called My Buddy, with the intention of marketing a doll specifically to young boys to teach them about caring for their friends. While Hasbro would eventually add a companion doll called Kid Sister for young girls, the My Buddy doll itself was considered an innovative and even somewhat controversial idea, as until that time dolls were traditionally associated just with younger girls. Still, fueled by a successful marketing campaign, including a commercial jingle that probably still echoes in the heads of anyone who grew up in the 80s, My Buddy was a hit, at least for a time. By the late 80s, Hasbro decided to discontinue My Buddy. This may just be because in 1988, Hasbro also bought Cabbage Patch Kids away from Coleco, after the latter's Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing, partly due to the public's waning interest in the brand. With that in mind, it probably made more sense for Hasbro to spend more time and effort on rejuvenating the brand with the larger name recognition, leaving My Buddy on the outs. But there's also speculation that Hasbro might have felt the need to abandon My Buddy for another reason generated in 1988, a recently released popular horror movie about a killer doll that bared a striking resemblance to My Buddy. Could this possibly have created a more negative connotation about My Buddy in the eyes of the public consumers? If that's the case, it would be an almost full-circle irony, as the writer of the movie in question, Don Mancini, admitted his original idea was heavily inspired by the Cabbage Patch Kids and My Buddy craze of the 80s, so much so that his initial working title was Blood Buddy. But just as Cabbage Patch Kids had undergone a renaming before hitting the market, the Killer Doll movie would also receive a new name, one that would be shared 31 years later by a brand new version of the movie. And reminiscent of the Martha Nelson Xavier Roberts plagiarism scandal of the 80s, so too would this new version of the movie stoke creator-led controversy regarding copying an already popular idea, but corrupting the spirit. The year is 2019, and United Artists are looking to reboot a successful, and confusingly still running, slasher series, and in the process hopefully launch a brand new, parallel version of the horror franchise with Child's Play. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
And I'm Chris, your buddy until the end.
I know, and I think I dream about that end every day. every day since I started this podcast, buddy. Look, it is, you know what I realized, Chris, after we did our last episode, is we never said in that last episode that it was the beginning of Summer Surprise. I would think our most hardcore, dedicated fans already knew that, but we are now in the middle of Summer Surprise. The series, what has become an annual series for us, where we allow an online randomizer to choose our movies for us, and that certainly speaks to today's movie, because I don't know that we would have gotten to this one for any other reason anytime soon. But I think it's gonna be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah,
and
same.
that is Child's Play. Now wait a second. Everyone's saying, wait a minute, Child's Play, that had plenty of sequels and a TV show. Yes. But we're, of course, talking about 2019's Child's Play. Haha, fooled you, nerds. 2019's Child's Play, the reboot of the I guess I would say classic slasher franchise. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about this version of Child's Play?
For sure. It's directed by Lars Klevberg. He directed a short film called Polaroid that became a feature film. I've seen that movie. That is PG-13 horror junk. So
yes.
just off
Which
the
you're
top,
like an aficionado of, we should say.
I do. I really do like my PG-13, 14A horror, fast food, just garbage. This one was awful. This one had no redeeming qualities. So
Polaroid, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, Polaroid. Yeah, Polaroid. Child's Play is written by Tyler Burton Smith. He's more in the video game world, funnily enough. He wrote Sleeping Dogs, Quantum Break, Alan Wake 2, which came out last year. And he most recently wrote the movie Boy Kills World with Bill Skarsgård that just recently came out. Of course, this is what Trev just alluded to. This is based on Child's Play from 1988 by Don Mancini, who, has basically committed his entire life to this franchise. The father of Chucky, a lot of people just, bestow upon him. John Lafia, he directed Child's Play 2, and Tom Holland, who, not Spider-Man, but
Nope.
the actor, writer, director that directed Child's Play 1, Fright Night. He's kind of a Masters of Horror guy.
Oh, yeah, he's been around for a long time. He wrote Psycho 2.
Exactly.
He's been around for a long time. He actually does talk about how when the Spider-Man announcement was made, people were tweeting him "What? Congratulations, I guess. Why are you playing Spider-Man?" This old man. He's like, "I don't. What are you talking about?" So yeah, just when he's not in the Actors Guild, so obviously there was no problems with the names being the same. But
that'll be a multiverse joke for the next multiverse thing. They'll bring him in the Spider-Man suit.
Oh man, I would love it. You failed to mention Don Mancini's most important credit. Trevor Snyder's Facebook friend, Don Mancini.
Really? Look at that! Wow.
Yeah,
you're basically Vin Diesel now with all your Facebook friends. That's crazy.
And until the last couple of years, he would often I shouldn't say often, but he did comment on some of my stuff, or if I commented on his stuff, he would answer back. There was even during a certain point in the Chucky franchise, he still had enough obvious downtime to hop on Facebook and chat with his Facebook friends. Seems like it's not so much anymore. I think he might be a little busier nowadays, but
sure.
I think the TV show made him a little more busy. But yeah, I've had some encounters with him on Facebook.
Cool. Gonna color your review later on?
We'll see.
The budget of Child's Play 2019 is $10 million, so quite cheap, actually, in today's world. Domestically, it made $29 million, and worldwide, it made $45 million, which is kind of in the realm of this franchise and what it brings in theatrically. It's not a very lucrative theatrical franchise. It's had legs for days, for decades, some would say. And it has 6 sequels. It's got a TV show going on currently right now. And it makes its money, I guess, just through the general pop culture rights, revisits, everything. Hey, it's never really gone away, truly.
Merchandise, baby. I don't know if you guys get Spirit Halloweens up in Canada around Halloween time, but man, Chucky merchandise.
Oh, yeah. Everywhere.
This is something you and I have talked about off pod quite a bit, about the magic of these long running horror franchises. This is a discussion you and I specifically had about Halloween Ends, a movie that we disagreed on, and we're talking about how that just eked slightly past $100 million, and you and I talked about how compared to the gross of Halloween 2018, what a disappointment the sequels ended up being financially. And I remember telling you, I don't think it matters to them, right? Because the thing about these like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Child's Play, you can look at the grosses and say, oh, the theatrical grosses aren't that high, but you also have to remember these are going to play on cable forever. They're going to keep re-releasing them as new DVD, Blu-ray, 4K sets, and the horror nerds are going to buy all of them. They're going to sell them to different streaming services, and they're just going to make so much money off of merch. And I think Chucky at this point has become one of the most merchandised, recognizable slasher icons. So the fact that not all these have, like, you look at me, you're like, well, those don't really look like blockbusters. It doesn't matter. He's got a cultural imprint that a lot of other more financially successful series would kill for, no pun intended.
Totally. Like I said, this new one grossed $45 million worldwide. I'm just going to run down the list here. So Child's Play, 1988, $33 million. Child's Play 2, $28 million. Child's Play 3, $15 million. Bride of Chucky, $50 million. That made the most. And Seed of Chucky, $24 million. So again, 44 ain't too shabby for the franchise, but in 2019 standards, dude, you got to hit over $100 million, to kind of especially branch off into this other kind of multiverse version of the Child's Play universe, which we'll get to soon enough. Without getting into our thoughts on the film, I think there were other things in play about why this maybe didn't get sequels to, in regards to its overall place in this franchise, right, and what happens after this. We should also mention, you just went through the theatrical worldwide grosses of those series. There are two more after Seed of Chucky that you didn't mention. That's because they were DTV. Yeah. But even that tells you, like, this series was clearly, important enough to Universal that even when they felt like the theatrical was kind of starting to cool down a little bit, they still knew there was enough value to do like the DVD like exclusive entries at a time where that market was just about to like collapse, but it was still there for them. So you got to figure that also means all those ones you just mentioned made additional money for sure on video because they were willing to keep it as a video only series at a certain point. This franchise is interesting on my end. Obviously, I know, Trev, you're the horror aficionado of the two of us. And I know you've seen these movies probably many, many times each throughout your entire life. I have seen each of the Chucky movies, technically all of them once, but just today I rewatched Curse of Chucky, just for fun to have a conversation about this movie too. But I did a watch of the whole franchise in 2015. So not too long ago, I did this. It was a blind spot. I know I had seen clips and stuff through, of course, just TBS Superstation and like all these other horror, marathon channels or whatnot. So I've seen so much of, especially Bride of Chucky. That one was like on all the time. And then of course
the biggest hit. Yeah.
Makes sense, right? And then the original Child's Play. I know many, many iconic scenes I have just seen so many times, like him attacking the guy in the car, and then the explosion in the beginning, killing him as a serial killer. So
I feel like everyone knows the scene where she's holding him and he first wakes up and like reveals himself as like being alive. Yeah.
I said, talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire.
You stupid bitch! You filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
So yeah, the Child's Play franchise, I would say that I like it. I like the franchise. I think I love Chucky. Does that make any sense? I kind of want to differentiate it a little bit. You know what I mean?
I think that's totally fair from like your perspective, and I think that's probably true of a lot of like kind of more casual fans and even more casual horror fans, and even just like non-horror fans. I think there are like not a lot of non-horror fans that like Chucky. Because I said he's just like, there's something about Chucky that's easily and instantly not only like identifiable just on like, oh, I recognize Chucky, but like his personality has like kind of outgrown the movies, as you said, like, and I think people just know that character. It's a series that, so I would say I love the series. I love Chucky and I love the series, and I'll get to my thesis statement in a moment, but I will say it's a franchise that took a while for me to get to that place. I think when I was younger, I remember having no real huge interest in Child's Play when the first three were coming out. Like, I didn't see those three in the theater. Now, I mean, I was only 8 when the first one came out. But, like, I don't think I even rented them. I probably came across them later on TV. The first one I definitely remember having more of an interest in was Bride of Chucky, probably because I heard really good things about it, probably because Jennifer Tilly looked amazingly hot in the trailer, and probably just because, there was like a little bit more hype for that one for whatever reason, and that obviously paid off in the grosses. But I definitely remember being like a snot-nosed little horror fan when I was younger and being like, that Child's Play, that's dumb. Like, a doll, you could just kick it. And you still hear people like say that, right? Like, there's nothing scary about a doll. It's like, how can a doll get you? So I don't think I got super bought into it until Bride of Chucky. And I remember just seeing Bride of Chucky when it came out and like, yes, totally falling in love with it. Buying the DVD. That's a DVD I watched so much when I first got it. And that kind of made me go back and revisit the first three and see like, okay, was I too dismissive? And yes, I found I was. And what I'll say now is this is not, I'm not alone in saying this, I don't think. I think this has become kind of actually a pretty recurrent like idea in horror fandom. But even though Child's Play is not my favorite horror franchise, as you know, that's Friday the 13th, I do think Child's Play is probably the best overall slasher horror franchise.
It
in
is
terms of just
super
overall
consistent.
So super consistent, and when I say that, let's make an important differentiation here. Not tonally consistent, not creatively consistent in terms of like what each movie is doing,
right?
But quality consistent, and that all has to do with the fact, as you said, Don Mancini being involved. It's the rare horror franchise where one creative mind has driven it since the beginning. There was a little bit of him and Tom Holland still kind of dispute who created what and who was like the bigger mastermind of the first one. But from that point on, Don Mancini has been the driving force of every entry and the TV show, excluding the reboot we're talking about today. And that kind of consistency, where, as you said, he's the father of Chucky and he's remained Chucky's like primary creative voice, that definitely helps the franchise in a way that other franchise, which has been kind of passed off and taken over by people more interested in like money than the quality of the originals. And I think it's just very cool how, as Don Mancini's gotten older, he's wanted to do different things with the series. He's wanted to experiment with it in different ways. He's been like, okay, it was a pure slasher franchise now. What happens if we make it a comedy? Oh, what happens if we make it a meta comedy? Oh, what happens if we take it back to horror but try to do like a more Hitchcockian thing? Oh, what happens if we take it to TV? And it's just like but keeping the same continuity. The continuity has been in place since Child's Play 1988 all the way till the end of the third season of Chucky, which just wrapped up earlier this year. So one continuity across multiple tonally different installments, different format installments, theatrical, DTV, TV series. But Don Mancini's been driving it, and that's what makes the series so awesome and impressive to me.
Totally. And like, me, I do like my, I don't want to say keep the canon intact, but I do really enjoy that even today when I was watching Curse, that they reference, it ties directly into, the beginnings of this franchise. And that's just so cool to me. And I do love that Don Mancini has been able to shepherd the entire franchise, writing everything. And it shows. So yeah, like I said, I like this franchise. I do. And having that singular voice is very, honestly, odd. Like, even in some of the biggest franchises of all time, the biggest money makers of all time, like, heck, even George Lucas had a ton of help when it came to certain entries of the Star Wars franchise, right? And then selling it off entirely, having no control. So it's kind of cool to see the Child's Play franchise, where it started and where it continues to go. And I think that's very interesting, especially when we talk about 2019 version. It's never gone away. This franchise has never, like, it's had, I guess, some breaks, but it's never ended and come back. So it's very interesting, the timing of the 2019 remake, reboot, reimagining, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, let me just also briefly say, because I think it should be said, because we're going to talk more about the reboot. So if we just to put the button on the original franchise for now, we keep saying the singular voice. Well, voice is also an important word. Let's just say there's actually two important voices to talk about here, right? Because Don Mancini is the creative voice, but also the voice of Chucky, Brad Dourif, who, again, you have Nightmare on Elm Street, where Robert Englund played Freddy in every entry except for the remake that you and I looked at. But beyond that, Halloween, plenty of people played Michael Myers. Plenty of people played Jason in Friday the 13th. Plenty of people played Leatherface. But Chucky is always Brad Dourif. And Brad Dourif is just one of our great character actors anyways. But like the incredible like vocal performance of Chucky. We talk about how like Chucky has outgrown his franchise culturally, I think, and that's because of how much fun Brad Dourif is having with the performance and how instantly iconic of a character he makes this smart ass, little bastard of a doll that is the villain, but everybody watching this franchise loves Chucky, and that speaks to like what Brad Dourif is doing with the performance.
He's got like this like despicable hilarity and like manic energy to the character.
Nothing like a strangulation to get the circulation going.
Like he's a total murderous son of a bitch, but his charm and wit make you just smile like every single time he's on screen, every time he speaks. Brad Dourif also swears so well.
I'm fucking infamous. I'm fucking trapped in here.
Who the fuck are you? Who the fuck is Martha Stewart?
Son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch. Bitch. Nosy bitch.
You stupid bitch.
Spell woman. T-C-H. That is incorrect.
Shows how much you know.
He's got just a great swearing voice and cadence to him. There's just so much personality to Chucky, which again has stayed intact. That's what's so cool too. From 1988 to presumably the TV show, because I have not watched the TV show. I know Trev has, but the personality is still the same. It is still Brad Dourif playing this character, and it's still Chucky, the one we knew from 1988, and that's just very cool to me. So I really
and
do
the
love that.
And the fact that over time it's become like this family affair too, right? Where starting with Curse of Chucky, they brought in Fiona Dourif, Brad Dourif's daughter, to play like the new protagonist, and that character has continued on through the next sequel and into the TV show, and even I don't know if you know this, Chris, if you followed like the TV show at all. They've done flashback episodes going back to like Charles Lee Ray, the serial killer that Brad Dourif played in 1988's Child's Play, who becomes Chucky. And when they do those flashbacks, it's actually Fiona Dourif in makeup to look like her dad.
No
and
shit.
It's like,
oh, that's fun.
it's really cool. And then like and then she can like approximate his voice somewhat, and like she's played Chucky at times. It's still Brad Dourif in the show, and Brad Dourif has also appeared in the show as like a ghost of Charles Lee Ray. So yeah, it's just so cool that like obviously because she was like a little girl growing up while they were making these movies, so she knew Don Mancini as maybe kind of like this other father figure too, right? Because he's such a close collaborator with Brad Dourif, so he brought her into the fold, and now. And even recently, like I don't know if you saw this, maybe I sent it in like one of the threads we're in, but Brad Dourif has basically said at this point he is entirely retired from acting except for Chucky. Like he's like, I will keep voicing Chucky as long as we keep doing the show or more movies. I'll keep working with Don Mancini and my daughter on this, but otherwise he's kind of wrapping it up. But he just loves this character too much, and he wants to stick with it. And obviously it's an easy gig for him, voiceover work. But still, he's committed. He's pot committed to this, and I think. I don't want to like be doom and gloom about this, but I do wonder where the franchise will go once we no longer have Brad Dourif with us. Hopefully that's a long ways off, but that to me is like still the secret sauce here too.
I in doing the research for this episode and kind of ingraining myself a little bit more in the franchise, it's been so long since I've even really thought about it, if I'm being honest. I know you have told me to check out the TV show.
TV show rules. I'll just say right now. I mean, we'll do our rankings later, but the TV show rocks. Sure. Yeah.
And I do want to watch it. I guess I just get so nervous when shows are like midway through and then they inevitably get canceled, so it drives me crazy. So, but that's kind of a cool insight. I didn't know about the Fiona Dourif stuff too. So it seems like they get wild and creative in the show too, which is awesome. Very cool.
They do. And like what I'll say too is each season of the show is kind of its own thing in a way. Like there's like obviously recurring storylines and the characters are traveling across. But I think what they have wisely done is each time a season has ended, it's felt like if there's no more, okay. And if it comes back, cool, we can pick up on this thread. And even to the point of where, like I said, the third season just wrapped up. And I will say this, like the third season ends on what I would call somewhat of a cliffhanger, but also like enough of an ending, And I don't know that it's going to get a fourth season. That's still up in the air. But Don Mancini is talking again about maybe going and doing another Chucky movie instead. And he's given every indication that if he does the movie, it'll still just pick up the same storyline threads because the TV show followed the continuity anyways. So I don't think you have to be as worried about it like you are with other shows, because I think Don Mancini's like, no, I'll keep this going no matter what format it's in. Right? I'm not going to leave these plot elements hanging.
Cool. Okay. Well, you may have convinced me.
Yeah.
I'll get to it. I've got to find where the hell it airs in Canada. The age-old question of what goddamn streamer is it on? Okay, so Child's Play 2019. How the heck did this movie even come about? Well, it starts in the early 2010s. This is before Curse of Chucky comes out on DTV in 2013. They were planning a remake of the Child's Play franchise with Dourif set to reprise the role and Mancini
I vaguely
involved.
remember this. Yeah.
Oh, do you do? Okay, good. Because there's not a lot of information. I have a feeling that this is why we got the tonal change again with Curse of Chucky. It feels, obviously it's connected, but it definitely is changing it up again. You know what I mean?
I think it's safe to say that Seed of Chucky is the most divisive entry in the franchise, and it has its fans, and there are also people who just absolutely hate it because that's the one where Mancini really went outrageous with the comedy, and it became very meta, very silly, and it is a weird movie. And that one, especially, like to go from a $50 million gross for Bride of Chucky to only 25 for Seed of Chucky, to lose half your gross, that tells you something. And so I think there was a definite thought of like, ooh, that might have been too much of a swing for the fence, and maybe we just have to restart everything. And then if not that, then I think even Don Mancini recognized, okay, maybe I pushed it a little too much with Seed of Chucky. Maybe I got to go back to the horror roots to get people back on board.
I keep saying that this franchise has never gone away, right? And it's odd to me that in 2019, this movie, kind of came to fruition as a reboot while this continuity is still going, right? Usually we need to see a franchise be resurrected. A pun kind of intended. Because typically a franchise needs to die. It needs to go away. It's on ice. And then, the producerial cogs start to turn. It was like, now is the time to bring Child's Play back. Well, that's not the case. So I have a little bit of a, business history for you here on why this movie started. So this goes back all the way to Child's Play 2, where this story really starts. And the real villain of the story, is not Chucky, but it's a venture capitalist from Australia named Christopher Skase. This guy in 1989 attempted to purchase MGM and United Artists. So at the time, that's who owned Chucky, or owned Child's Play, I would say. And the first film was very successful. And Dave Kirshner, the producer behind these movies with Don Mancini, he got a call from Dick Berger, who was the head of United Artists at the time, right? And it was a weird call because he calls him to say, hey, by the way, we're about to be bought by this guy, this venture capitalist, and he does not want to make horror films anymore. So know what we're going to do for you? We're actually just going to give the movie and the rights back to you, free and clear. Now, that's unheard of. That does not happen. And, this made, of course, Dave Kirshner and Don Mancini, it's kind of they're upset about it, obviously, because they're being abandoned. And now they have to go to market again and perhaps not make any more Child's Play. But also, they're very interested in what the future holds. And this is where Paramount, Warner Brothers, Columbia, 20th Century Fox, Carolco, New Line, Disney were all interested in purchasing Child's Play when they were going to market. But one Steven Spielberg comes to the table. And he calls Dave Kirshner, who they worked back in the late 80s on An American Tail. Remember that cartoon with the mouse?
I had a Fievel plush animal when I was a kid, so yeah, I definitely remember.
Love those movies. I especially love Fievel Goes West. That's an amazing movie from my childhood. But anyway, Steven Spielberg calls him up and says, yo, Dave, before you go to market, go to Universal first. I know the guy there. I know the head of Universal. Please call them because I think we have a spot here for this franchise. So they go to Universal and Universal buys them immediately. They don't go to anyone else. And then it starts off a long-time partnership with Kirshner and Mancini and Universal altogether. The problem, though, is that Curse and Cult of Chucky come out later, in the mid aughts, I guess, right? Or in mid 2010s. And they are not given theatrical releases. So United Artists is still around. They're not a company that's gone, but they actually hold the rights to remake the first movie.
Yeah.
So because, yes, the Child's Play franchise is ongoing, but there's no there is a theatrical hole for this franchise. United Artists thinks, you know what? Through our subsidiary, Orion Pictures, let's get a remake off the ground, because obviously Don's doing his thing on DTV, and and he's might have plans for a TV show. So let them have their corner of the universe, and we are going to now spearhead another theatrical go at it.
And I think, and I'm not sure if this is specifically in the material you're looking at, but
Sure.
It's important to note too that what I think was always the case is that Mancini and his partners were able, when they were given the franchise, they were given the rights to Chucky, but not Child's Play. Right, and that's why when Universal takes it over, it stops being Child's Play and starts being Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, Curse of Chucky, right? So I think United Artists always had the rights to the name Child's Play, whereas Mancini owned the overall character rights. So this is very similar to the problems that are facing the Friday the 13th franchise right now, right? Where somebody owns Friday the 13th, but another person owns Jason, but they're like, oh, I own Jason as a kid, but you own Jason as a killer with a hockey mask. These things can get actually really complicated, and I think this is clearly one of those cases.
Well, remember, this happened in the early 80s with 2 James Bond movies.
Yeah.
There's the Rogue Sean Connery movie that was made outside the Broccoli's. So it's not unheard of. It's very rare, but it's not unheard of. I know also it happened with your favorite movie of all time is still Night of the Living Dead, right?
It is, yes.
It is. So this was kind of going on in with Day of the Dead and Return of the Living Dead as well. Would you kind of put that in the same kind of category?
It's a little different. The Night of the Living Dead thing is a more tragic story where they screwed up the copyright, and so that movie's always been in public domain. But yeah, there's definitely the guy who owns the producer who owns the rights to Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead has definitely allowed people, especially Day of the Dead. There's been all these Day of the Dead sequels that have nothing to do with Romero's series. So yeah, there's definitely some similarities to what you're saying. Slightly different, but it's same wheelhouse. So yeah.
Sure. So that's the reason we're getting this movie in 2019. Also, there was a little movie called It that came out a couple years before to huge success. And that was produced by Seth Grahame-Smith and David Katzenberg. And they just wanted another horror franchise under their belt at this point. They had basically one of those blank check moments to say, it was a monster hit. What else can we do? Well, let's revitalize the Chucky franchise as well. So they spearhead this project. They go to, well, first of all, they do ask Mancini and Brad Dourif to be part of this. Both absolutely not. Same with Dave Kirshner, the original producer. This is
because you oh, go
sorry.
ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say this is an entirely different creative team. There's not a single bit of overlap for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, you joked earlier about whether being Facebook friends with Mancini would pepper my thoughts on this movie, but it should be said that Mancini was pretty vocal at this time about how he was not super excited about this reboot, and specifically because, as you said, he still had plans to continue his version of the franchise, and he was very worried about confusion in the marketplace and this kind of getting in the way with what he was trying to set up at the time, which we now know is the TV show, but just kind of hey, wait a minute, I'm still doing Chucky over here. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, his quote. I love this quote. It might be different if we were finished, but we're hardly finished. We would prefer not to have our brand muddied. And I totally get it. Yeah. This is the first time ever in the history of this franchise where some creative control has been taken away from him. So I get it. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Brad Dourif also says no. So they need a new voice for this new Chucky. And the producers are on record saying that their first and only choice was one Luke Skywalker himself, Mark Hamill.
Hello, WonderCon. It's Mark Hamill here. And if you're wondering who's going to voice Chucky in the new Child's Play, you're looking at him. I can't wait to bring such an iconic character to life and present him in a way you've never seen him before. Child's Play this summer. We're going to have some fun. And remember, he's more than just a toy. He's your best friend.
And Mark Hamill, as we all know, is an iconic voice actor as well. You know, the Joker, especially from the Batman animated series. But as much as we know him as Luke Skywalker, his voice acting credits are kind of off the chart. He is he's incredibly well respected in the voice actor community, and he's great at it. Like he's a great voice actor.
Yeah.
So I totally get why they would go with him. Also, it's kind of cool to have like an iconic actor / iconic character have a take on another iconic character.
Yeah, and it's smart to get like another nerd icon, right? Because you're trying to win over nerds. So it's helpful to have like someone who is like popular at like Comic-Cons and stuff, right? To get out there as a vocal spokesperson and hopefully dispel some of the, you know, the kind of like instant negativity. Because like let's say, I mean, Mancini's comments were definitely, he knew what he was doing. He was somewhat driving a fan revolt, right? Trying to drive a fan revolt. So if you want to get out ahead of that, let's get like a beloved nerd icon out there to like be like, I don't know, I'm doing something different, and I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, Jennifer Tilly also did the same thing with social media and did a lot of like hashtag not my Chucky, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was funny too because they started to really go hard at the movie when the marketing started. And I will say the marketing for Child's Play 2019 was pretty cool. At this time, Toy Story 4 was coming out. And remember all the posters where they had Chucky killing the Toy Story characters?
I didn't until you just said that, and now you've just reminded me of that. Yeah,
and that was pretty cool. I did like that a lot. They even tried to coincide it with at the time Annabelle Comes Home was coming out, the third installment of that franchise, and it had Chucky killing Annabelle on the poster as well. So I did like that. I don't know how they got away with it, but
parody laws, I guess. You know,
but I did love that the marketing campaign was great, and it is funny because a marketing campaign for a movie about an evil. Well, I guess robot doll in this one. The marketing was so good for this, did not bring the money in as it should. It just reminded me of the other side of the coin when Megan came out a couple years after, and the marketing campaign was fucking legendary, and that movie made tons of money. Yeah. So just interesting, the power of marketing. Yeah,
but I think it's also safe to say Megan also was not in, like, we can talk about whether this was more of a benefit or of a hindrance for them, right? Because Megan wasn't encumbered by being attached to another franchise and having like people involved in that franchise out there saying this isn't a real one, you know. So, and I don't know, it's hard to, we'll never know how much that might have affected this movie. I'm a Mancini fan, but I'm probably not naive enough to think he cost this like, $1 billion or anything. But It'd be interesting to hear. It'd be interesting to know what their kind of like very vocal displeasure with this did ultimately to the performance in the movie.
Well, probably a bit.
Because the movie still did well, right? So it's hard to say. Yeah,
it did well by the franchise standards, I guess, for sure. But also, I guess. I mean, you're deep in the horror community, right? And I'm not trying to point this at you specifically, but sometimes the horror community, when it comes to these remakes or reboots, sometimes I feel like there's an air of cynicism to it in a sense of like, hey, prove me wrong. So I can see if, Don Mancini, the king of the franchise, says, hey, fuck this movie, basically, then the horror mob is like, yeah, fuck this movie. You're right. So
but then United Artists comes back and says, we got the Polaroid director, and everyone's like, oh, okay, well, then we're excited,
That's just one of these things that Hollywood does. Hey, just gets a guy that makes a short film. I don't know.
A director so minuscule in stature and acclaim, he does not even have a Wikipedia page. Do you know how bad it is if you're a director in the horror franchise and no horror fan has bothered to make you a Wikipedia page? That's pretty sad.
I don't want to shit on him too hard, but I will say I'm at his IMDb right now to see what else he's done since then, and he has been the third assistant director on a miniseries.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's all you really got to say. Okay. We know Mark Hamill is Chucky. Do you want to just get into it?
Yeah, we can talk about the rest of the cast in the review.
Sure.
Andy, I know, this move has been really tough, but this is supposed to be a new start for us, remember? You said you were going to try to make new friends.
Buddy can connect to and control all of your Caslin products and smart home devices. Introducing your new best friend.
Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to believe me. I think Chucky did something.
Andy, if you know something, you better tell me.
Something's wrong with Chucky.
Buddy can connect to and control all of your Caslin products.
Chucky is a toy.
He could be anywhere.
Welcome to Caslin Cars.
We have to stop him. Chucky!
Good night, Andy.
Karen Barclay and her hearing-impaired son Andy live a simple life in the city of Chicago. When Andy's birthday is around the corner, Karen encourages him to come out of his shell and make new friends. To help cheer him up, she gifts him an early birthday present in the form of a defective, technologically advanced Buddy doll that she took from her retail job at Zedmart. Andy activates the doll, and the self-titled Chucky grows attached to him, doing anything in his power to protect the young boy, which might include murder, carnage, and disembowelment of anyone who threatens their newfound friendship.
Yes, and that is Megan. I mean, Child's Play. Child's Play 2019. I'll go first on this one because you said I have like more history with the franchise and just probably some different perspective on this. And you just mentioned earlier, I think one thing I do want to set the context for because I want to be completely open and honest about the overall reaction to this movie. Is, as you said, sometimes horror fans can have a little bit of an attitude about these remakes, but if the remakes come out and are pretty good, you'll see I don't want to call it backtracking, but just more like, hey, we never said it was, just like suddenly they turn around and there are definitely some horror remakes that are well liked. And this is one that I kind of always did have a chip on my shoulder about, I'll fully admit, because of, the same thing, feeling like, hey, they're still making this franchise. Mancini doesn't want them to do this. Why are they doing it? And then I felt like the horror franchise or the horror fandom was more or less with me. And then, to be totally fair, this movie came out and actually was fairly well received. Critically for this kind of movie. It wasn't 100% on Rotten Tomatoes or anything, but more people seem to like it than you would expect. And I definitely even saw a lot of horror fans say, "Hey, this is surprisingly pretty decent and kind of fun." And it's maybe not a movie we needed, but it's not that bad. And so I went and saw it and wondered what was everyone talking about. This is just not for me. And I'm as we get into the review, I'll get into more specifics. But it's very easy, and I know maybe even you're going to be tempted to say a lot of this is me just being unfair because of how much I love Mancini's version and feel like this movie is unfair to him, and that's definitely a part of it. But I want to push that aside, and I want to say my biggest problem with this actually is that you and I have talked before about what is the purpose of a remake, right? And how tough remakes are to where you want to do something different, but you want to keep the spirit of the franchise in place. And I don't think this movie does that. I think by taking a franchise, which is always about a doll possessed by a serial killer, so giving it this very supernatural, it's a very supernatural franchise, right? It's about a spirit, this psychotic force inside this doll and what that means. And then just changing it into a broken AI toy. I don't get why this is Child's Play, other than the obvious cynical reasons we talked about. Of course, it's Child's Play because of money and because of brand recognition. But I think it's bizarre that they kept the character names, kept it be Karen and Andy, but then and Mike Norris as the detective, but then just like changed the central concept. And that felt like a betrayal of the franchise to me. So that was one thing I wasn't happy about. And I also just think the movie is very confused about what it is. I don't think this movie is ever scary. I think it has some decent dark humor. I will talk about that. I think there are some moments that are very funny. I think Mark Hamill is fine as the voice of Chucky. I don't necessarily like this version of Chucky because I find him less interesting when he's just a malfunctioning toy. But Mark Hamill's fine. There's some good humor. But the movie is tonally bizarre because it's trying to be more of a dark comedy than anything funny or than anything scary. And I think at least Child's Play started off with a better mixture of that, being kind of actually scary before it went off the rails into absurd, comedy. So, yeah, I'll get into more specifics, but I can't say I'm a fan. This is, unfortunately, this was the third time I've watched this movie now. I saw it when it came out.
That is, first of all, you to a T, but also horror fans.
Well, yeah, that is true, because I'll explain. Like, I saw it in the theater out of the pure curiosity and hoping it would be good, and I didn't like it. And even if you go back and read my original review, I was like trying to be pretty positive about it, I think, like to a certain degree. And then I ended up watching it again with my fiancée Liz when we did a whole franchise watch to prepare for the show. And I was like, okay, we got to watch this again. And I liked it less that second time. And then I thought I was done, but then Summer Surprise got me and I had to go back. And now I can tell you, I'm now confident I will never need to watch this again.
Right. I mean, back in 2019, we both saw this in theaters, and we're probably going to have the very similar debate as we did back then. My feelings haven't really changed on it. I still think it is like pretty good, pretty entertaining, some nice, surprising level of gore in this one. I like Mark Hamill. He lacks the personality of Brad Dourif because obviously, it's. I like that this movie just isn't a member berry retread of the Chucky movies. I like that it takes the core concept of like, an evil doll and goes in its own modern AI techno horror way in 2019. I actually think it's kind of like almost like the start of these evil AI, this evil AI trend that we've been seeing in the last couple of years. I know I just texted you the trailer for that new Megan Fox movie, and you right away were like, "I'm already sick of this."
Yeah.
So like, and I get it because there's not a lot to that because you sent me the clip from The Simpsons.
Yep, here's your problem. Someone set this thing to evil. I love you, Homer. Come here, you.
And that's where, it's the Krusty doll and, it's just switched to evil mode versus good mode. And this is kind of what happens in this movie too. Like it starts out with
this movie is a 90-minute version of that joke. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, there is something kind of funny to that, especially because it's a disgruntled tech factory worker that does it and then commits suicide. And I mean, it's kind of that mean-spirited tone to it right off the bat. And a little bit of the commentary on how these AI or these I guess these tech companies operate. But I think Chucky in this movie is just a prop. And I think that's the issue is you do compare yourself to you do compare it to Brad Dourif's version, which is an actual human being serial killer that it gets voodooed into a doll. And there's just much more personality that way versus just kind of like Mark Hamill's Chucky is just a toy, truly.
Yeah, that's what, because you said a couple of seconds ago that you were like, well, Mark Hamill doesn't have as much personality as Brad Dourif, because obviously, but honestly, the answer is Mark Hamill could have had as much personality as Brad Dourif. Yeah. It's the script's version of Chucky that's hindering him here.
But like I put in my notes here, I said, how cool would it be if Mark Hamill did get to play a real life serial killer to start this movie off, right?
For sure.
No. I get that, but then also now we're getting into that retread, member berry way of doing these movies that we rag on. So it's like, what do we want? Do we want it to just do the old movie again, or do we want it to actually have a take? And at least I say this one has a take. It gets a little, it gets stuck because it's stuck in it's trapped inside remake mode. I know that's for sure. And, there's undeniable baggage by using the title and the character names. And I do think that is a hindrance. So I agreed with your first comment for sure. But I still think I'd rather a movie have a little bit of a take and go off on its own direction.
I mean, I agree with you in theory, but I think you just nailed it. I think that, as unfair as it might be, I think ultimately the albatross around this movie is that it's setting itself up for failure in a way by calling itself Child's Play and saying this is a new Chucky. Because honestly, and I think that bears out in the fact that we are talking about it on this show. Yeah. Megan is getting a sequel and a spinoff, and obviously Megan did better. But we just said maybe that's partly because of the marketing, partly because it felt like the beginning of a new franchise. It didn't feel like a retread of something that came before, and it didn't feel like, oh God, they're just bringing this back and they're doing a new version that even the original people don't like. Yeah. And I wonder. So that's my thing is like, I agree with you that like, it's cool that they didn't just say, let's just redo the Charles Lee Ray story. But then why make it Child's Play? That's what I'm still going to keep always coming back to. And why not just call this like Killer Buddy, and not have it be Chucky? Like even like his name is Chucky in the Child's Play movies because Chucky is like, a nickname for Charles, right? So it's Charles Lee Ray and he's called Chucky already before he becomes the doll. And then in this, there's a whole thing where it's just like they turn a doll on, and he's like, "What do you want to be called?" And I can't remember what Andy says, but he just goes like, "Oh, Chucky," and it's like, "Wait, what? Where'd that come from?" And it's like the laziest like, "Oh, he's just calling himself Chucky because that's what we want him to be called because it's a Chucky movie." So why not just call him Buddy? Just have it be its own thing. And honestly, who knows? Like this obviously made money because of the Child's Play name, but if they had been brave enough to just drop the Child's Play stuff and use this script. Because, I mean, Megan did come along later and was a bigger hit. And I do think Megan is the more successful version of what this movie's trying to do. Mm-hmm. But maybe this movie could have, like, started its own franchise if it wasn't trying to tie itself to a long-running, very successful, very known franchise.
I agree. Like, this one is, again, it's trapped. It's trapped in remake mode. Just like the doll trapped in evil mode. And I think there's some good ideas in this movie. But like you said about the tone, it doesn't exactly know what it wants to be and what it wants to do. So does it really want to commentate on the tech industry and its treatment of their workers? Maybe. Yeah. Does it want to talk about AI and us being totally connected that it can ultimately destroy us? I guess so. Does it want to be about consumerism and the same themes of like the first Child's Play movie? I guess a little bit. And all of those three muddy the waters that it does become. I can't remember who said this, but I saw it on a review, so I'm sorry that I'm aping it. But they said it was like a cover band, and that they have a take on the old songs, but it doesn't quite hit the way that they're hoping it does.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing it doesn't want to do, and this very much speaks to the difference between the wild like freedom of the 80s and the more play it safe, we want to make a lot of money on an IP name of the 2010s. It doesn't want to put an actual young child in danger. So, like Andy in the 1988 Child's Play, played with Alex Vincent, is a very little kid, and it's a great young child performance, and you're genuinely scared for Andy because he is very young and seems very helpless against Chucky. Mm-hmm. And Andy in this version is like a young teenager basically, and to the point where he's so much older than a kid with this doll should have. The movie has to address that. Like the movie even has to play it like his mom gets it for him as kind of more of a joke, and he's like, oh, this is lame, and he only keeps it because he doesn't want to like offend his mom. Mm-hmm. And like, so it's like, okay, so again, like, so now there's a lot of decisions like that in this movie too, where I know it's just a Child's Play movie and maybe I'm overthinking it, but I keep wondering, like, why does this kid have this Chucky doll? And there's no way he would go out in public holding that doll into the streets of Chicago, to like get bullied with that thing when he's like that old. And then like there's the like this version of Chucky like is able to sync with everything in your household. like through the AI, and I'm just thinking like, why? How does that make sense on a logical level? Why would anybody make a child's toy that can control every appliance in the house? No parent would ever buy that for their kid. You know, it's just like logically, there's these like shortcuts that the script takes that don't really make sense. So again, it's just like I maybe I'm being unfair, but those are the kind of things that stick out to me, because when you remove the fantastical supernatural element, you're trying to place this like a little bit more in, oh, it's an AI product. Well, then I'm going to maybe treat your script with a little more scrutiny too.
I mean, the last bit I will say, there is far too many people that allow all of their devices to connect to absolutely everything, all the goddamn.
Yeah, but I don't know
time.
that they give control to their kids with like a doll that like
Sure.
is like, you know, yeah.
No, and I get that point too. Like I get it. I think with a more deft hand, that age difference could be handled better, especially, you know, when it becomes clear that the movie wants to be a not a whodunit, but oh man, this kid might possibly be doing all the murders and blaming the doll situation, right? I guess that's much more logical that this, you know, loner, fatherless, socially stunted kid might be going a little crazy and then blaming the doll. And again, but that's another piece of the movie that it doesn't go fully into, right?
Yeah,
it's just another cog.
Honestly, that's the take I wish they'd concentrated on.
Yes,
because that's
same.
kind of something that the Child's Play movies have never, you know, they've explored that just a little bit, but they've never gone, that's never been the central point of a movie. And that could have been, instead of the AI thing, that could have been what really separated it, right? Keep the serial killer thing, but have the movie be all about how he's totally framing this kid, and this kid seems like an outsider. And this kid's like battled to convince his own mom he's not the murderer. You know, that would be more interesting to me than just like, my doll's broken and so it's trying to kill me. You know, like, yeah.
And yeah, like again, a more deft hand has like even the audience second guessing the main character as well.
I mean, maybe a more deft hand would also be like, hey, if I establish that this kid is deaf and is a hearing aid, maybe I'll use that in some significant way later.
Yeah, that was a little stupid, other than just having Chucky in his ear, I guess, later in the climax of the movie. It was just I guess you didn't really need to do that. You could have put him on the intercom. Who cares? Okay, let's talk about a little bit more positives, okay? Because I want to hear your positives, because I know you know what I'm going to say. So I want to hear from you. Name a couple positives at least with this movie. Now that you're an expert, that you've seen it 3 times.
I know. Yeah.
One against your will. Please enlighten me on what you found at least maybe positive in this viewing.
I would argue 2 against my will. I really tried to convince Liz we didn't need to watch this one, but we always end up doing these full franchise rewatches. No, I have some positives. As I said, I do think this movie's at its best a couple times when it decides to just zoom in on like dark comedy. You know, there's a scene in this that's very similar to a scene that, you know, I also loved in Eli Roth's Thanksgiving last year. Anytime you spray a screaming child in the face with blood, you are going to get me laughing. And there is a scene like that near the end of this one where all these kids have gathered for like a product unveiling, and there's a guy in a mascot suit, and Chucky has slashed his throat. And he falls, and the mask comes off, and the kids in the front row are just doused in his blood as they scream. I find that very funny. And I know how insane I sound right now. But again, as Chris just said, I'm a horror fan. So
well, I want to cut you. I want to cut you off real quick, because I wrote this in my notes. I said, when they're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Chucky starts to get murder ideas, that fat kid laughing uncontrollably with the popcorn falling out of his mouth is how I picture Trev when he watches all his horror smut films.
By the way, that was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 they were watching, and
yes.
That's one of the better parts of the movie too, when I just get to see scenes from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, a movie I love. And then the other scene like that I do think is actually very funny, and it's like this. If I wish the whole movie had like this sense of humor, and maybe you'll argue it does, but I think this is like the height of it. Is when Chucky kills Andy's like his mom's like shitty boyfriend, and leaves the severed head in Andy's room as like a present for him, and Andy has to like dispose of it without anyone finding out about it, and he like wraps it up like it's a present, and then his mom sees him with it, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm giving this to our next door neighbor, and the mom is like, okay, well, let's take it over there now. Like that whole run. That's the thing I liked in the theater, even when I saw it. I think I talked about that in my initial review, even saying like, this is the best part of the movie. Like, I'm watching these kids trying to dispose of a severed head, and like the comedy of errors of that, where they take it over, and the neighbor's like, why don't we just open it right now? And I even love that joke where he's like, no, don't open it now. Why don't you keep it? It's a present for you. You keep it, and we'll open it together on my birthday next week. And the neighbor's like, oh, that's a very weird idea, but okay. So yeah, I like that. So there are some, and I agree with you. Like this is like going to be a positive and a negative. I'll talk about the negative later. But I agree with you that the gore is good in the movie. So if you're coming to this for just like some fun gore and some crazy kills, and I do think that's where a lot of like the positivity of this about this movie came from, because like you said, in 2019 we weren't getting a lot of like hyper gory slasher movies anymore, and I think people are just excited to see like a gory 80s style slasher. Yeah, and I do like some of the kills in this for sure. So those would be like my positive bits. There's some good comedy in it. As I said, I appreciate what Mark Hamill's trying to do. I wish he was given a chance to have more personality. Oh, and that takes me to the other funny joke, is when the bully kids are trying to teach Chucky to say this is for Tupac, and later he kills someone and says this is for Tupac. That's good. I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
This is for Tupac.
Yeah, the gore is really fun. Like you're saying, Shane is the shitty boyfriend of Aubrey Plaza's character. Aubrey Plaza's the mom to Andy. MILF alert. And also I do like
they call that out in the movie too.
Yeah, they do. And I actually do like their relationship together. I think they play off each other really well. I bought her as his mom, as somebody who had a kid very, very young. And she was, a hot, hip mom, trying to make ends meet. Anyway, the Shane, the boyfriend, he falls off his roof, breaking his legs, like his shins, like splint to the side. He's scalped. He's stabbed, and then, like Trev said, he takes his face off, like from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and staples it to a watermelon. It's
I said severed head, but yeah, it's a watermelon with that face on it. Yeah,
but it's quite shocking. It's quite shocking. Also, when Chucky kills creepy Jack Black, the janitor there. And that is brutal as well. The way he kills him, stabs him and slices him, hangs him on a hot water pipe, and then he's like blasts the temperature up, and then the guy has to fall directly, his crotch directly onto a buzzsaw. That was quite good. And then the whole finale is really fun in the superstore with the big AI is going crazy. A bunch more robots are killing people. I think there could have been more of that, but that seems like a budget thing. This movie only cost $10 million, so they wanted to make it for cheap. They probably could have gone further with that, but there is some fun to be had. I think that sense of humor you're talking about, I do think it's placed throughout the film a little bit more than what you are saying. Even like when Chucky takes out the grandma or the mom, I guess, that neighbor mother in her like AI car. I think that's quite fun. But again, it all comes back to this is just a robot with the bad programming.
Well, yeah, and then also talking about the movie being kind of confused, because you just mentioned the scene where it kills their neighbor is this older lady who we find out is the mom of Detective Mike Norris, who is the character Chris Sarandon played in the original, but here he's played by Brian Tyree Henry. And he's just the son of their neighbor, but he gets involved because he comes over and he meets Andy, and then he's investigating the murders and everything. But the scene where Chucky ends up killing the elderly neighbor is kind of the only scene that works as horror. Because another thing that bothers me about this movie, and again, this gets to when you talk about like the movie being confused about what it is and how it wants to like present itself to the audience, is up until that point, everybody Chucky kills sucks. Like they're like these piece of shit people. Yeah. And it's like the movie is like I think the movie is like asking you to kind of root for Chucky, and that felt strange to me as well, right? So it's like Shane is like not only like kind of abusive with Andy, but we find out he's actually a married guy, and he's like having an affair, so he's cheating on his wife with Aubrey Plaza. Oh, the janitor has hooked up cameras to spy on Aubrey Plaza in the shower. Like everybody Chucky goes after. Even the cat that he kills is an asshole. The cat like is a shitty cat that like scratches Andy.
Yeah.
And it's like I wish the movie. Again, it feels like the movie is like not willing to be as like mean and scary as it wants to be, and I think that plays into again having the cast be a little older. And it's definitely, you said this is also following It and the success of Stranger Things, and we just know how this works in Hollywood, right? Some executive is like, people like that It, people like Stranger Things. Let's not just have Andy, but let's have him have a group of friends and have them all be about the age of the Stranger Things kids, and we can have like a Stranger Things gang fighting Chucky. Like everything feels very calculated in that way.
But I guess I do like the idea that Chucky wants to protect Andy. I do like the idea that his programming is off kilter, and he's programmed to be his best friend till the end, and he'll do anything in his power to keep that intact. I obviously love Dourif's Chucky, that he is just a complete absolute psycho, right? And he's unpredictable. That's what's fun about him. He will kill everyone in that movie. Like no one is safe, so to speak, right? In this one, I do like the little bit of a logical reason for the madness. It's a little bit of a take, right? It's that this robot doll is looking after his best friend. So I do like that, and even things start to change at the end when, Chucky's like, why is Andy and his friends hurting me? And now he's out for a little bit of revenge. And then he's like, I need to reprogram Andy now to be like me, and we'll be living a happy life together. So I do like that. Again, that logical reason does sit nicely in the framing, in the context of this movie. But yeah, it just lacks the personality. I think that's a huge part of it. It just lacks the personality overall, especially with your title character, right?
Yeah. And like I said, if you want to get like, you don't have to, but if you want to get into like the nitty gritty of it, it really makes you question like, what is the AI programming like of this doll? To like, I know that we see the guy mess with it at the beginning in the factory, like you said, but like, geez, we only see him change like one line of code or something, and it's like, and now this thing is like that adaptive to have like that kind of like logical leap of like,
Well, I think that's part of the joke. I think that's part of the joke, that this one guy changes
then I guess that comes down to what you said. Like, again, maybe this is just a matter of like the wrong filmmakers then, because I'm not even disagreeing with you that like a lot of what this movie is trying for could be very effective, but I think like maybe this director and these writers weren't there. I don't think they're quite getting there with this material, because you were talking about like what some of the parody could have been on this, and I think because it's trying to do so much, it keeps coming up short in every category.
Sure. Yeah. Again, I still think it's a fun movie, but it doesn't do enough to, I guess, back up its own existence, right? Yeah. Like, if this is going to be another avenue for this franchise where we're going to watch Mark Hamill's Evil Doll movies going forward, there's just not enough there, right, to do that. And again, it's always an uphill battle when you're running dual franchises. Like I really come back to that. I think that's a huge part of the overall, I guess, forgetfulness of this movie. People are kind of against it when it comes out. The amount of people that see it think it's okay, but then the Chucky TV show is getting started. So now it's like, okay, well, if I have two avenues for Chucky, the one that we love for the last 30 plus years, well, I might as well just watch that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I meant earlier when I said this. I think the ultimate like problem, like this movie. So I'll get back to that in a second, but I do think this movie is just like keeps shooting itself in the foot by trying to like call back to like Child's Play, even as little as it might. So they said, like, why have it be Karen and Andy? Why not just rename those characters? Or why not even just, like, leave Andy out of it and just have it be about, like, a woman of, like, Karen's age who, like, buys this doll as, like, kind of a goof or something. Just, like, do something very different to stop reminding us of the other movie, which is always a problem with these. But yeah, to the point you were just making is, like, even though this movie came out and even though a lot of horror fans did end up being, like, kind of like, oh, okay, that wasn't as bad as I expected, then you said like the real version comes back soon and they go like, oh good, that's what I really like. And there's like, and that's what I think killed this movie ultimately. I think as this movie made money, it was well regarded enough. But once Chucky got going again in its pure form, I don't think anybody was like, well, I want to have two versions going at the same time. So it's like very easy to like abandon this. And I do think even today, this kind of already feels, it's not that old of a movie, but it kind of feels like a forgotten movie a little bit in terms of this overall franchise, because the show came along and has done very well and has been very critically acclaimed and has really stolen the thunder away from like them trying to get this rebooted.
Yeah, definitely. We never mentioned it before, just sorry to go back a little bit, but I did like the use of practical robot Chucky in this. I also like his design.
Ooh, okay. So here's a big disagreement. I think Chucky's like the design is terrible in this.
Well, that's because I think you have your memory goggles on, because what I like about this look of this Chucky is that he does have this creepy, weird, uncanny valley look to him, just like we see all of these weird AI toys and robots that have been coming out in the last couple of years. It looks fucking unsettling, and it doesn't look cute. And I think that's the point, and that's why I like it.
Yeah, but see, I don't like that point. Like I think what's very effective about Chucky is that Chucky does look like a Cabbage Patch doll, right? He really looks like a toy.
Yeah, but this one looks like an AI tech.
Yeah, but like, does he? I don't know if I've seen a lot of like AI dolls that look like this. Like he looks like an AI tech. But remember, in the movie, even in this movie, he is being made as a product to be sold to kids, and he's just like hideous looking. I can't imagine kids like wanting this in their bedroom. Like he's like very ugly. Whereas I think, you get why kids, especially young kids, who he's supposed to be marketed to, would want like a good guy doll, which is like very cute until, Charles Lee Ray takes it over.
I guess in the old Child's Play, the good guy dolls were a successful product. In this one, it's just the launch of it. So it goes back to that commentary on tech companies selling things that are stupid, that are inherently badly designed, and people do not want. I
would argue against that. I think it makes clear at the beginning of this movie that they're already a successful product. Like they're already moving into like wave 2 and like the new model, and people are very excited about it.
No, but they start off saying that it wasn't diverse enough, and there wasn't this version and that version, and it wasn't really connecting well on the first version.
So this is an anti-woke movie too.
Yeah, but the second Buddy 2 is going to have improvements all across the board. So I think it was like just a good enough product in the context of the movie. And again, the look of it looks like... Seriously, after this, go look at AI fucking creepy robot shit. And it looks like Chucky. Like, it does not look settling.
Yeah, I just don't know that I've seen a lot of things look like this being mass marketed to like, homes and kids.
But that's why I think that's the joke. That's the joke. And I keep going back to a more deft hand. I genuinely feel that the joke is there. That is what they're going for, but they're just not sticking the landing like they should.
I think you're giving him too much credit. I think you're calling it a joke, and I think it's some guy, artist being hired, and they're saying we need it to look like Chucky, but not look enough like Chucky where Don Mancini can sue us. Like, what can you do? Like,
no, I don't think so. I don't think that at all. No, not at all. But I did like the use of the practical robot effects and stuff. I thought that was kind of nice. It was nice because in this day and age, they could have CGI'd him the entire time. So, anyway.
I thought most of it was going to be CGI, but they had like an animatronic doll, 6 of them, that moved and could make facial expressions and everything.
When I saw the Chucky doll, I was kind of impressed how realistic he looks, how he can convey emotion.
Good night, Andy.
And a big part of getting Chucky right was having animatronics be a lot of the times that we see Chucky.
See Chucky come alive has been very rewarding. It's a difficult process to make an animatronic puppet, to get this beautiful design transferred onto the doll.
The actual Chucky dolls, the internal structure is a series of animatronics that help move all the joints. It has a plastic exoskeleton we put over top of the animatronics. The skins are made of foam latex. The eyes will be replaced with digital movement, and then we dress his costume over top of that.
We call him our Robo-Chucky. Usually it takes 3 to 4 full puppeteers completely top to bottom. His face has all the expressions in it.
Don't forget your little doll.
We've even got interchangeable hands that are just grippy and grabby.
It's an evil robot.
I know I want to talk rankings of this franchise. I know exactly where you're going to put this one. But, listeners, we have a little bit of a spin-off podcast that happens on the feed called Success to Series. We've only done it a few times, but we talk about franchises that did succeed over all this time. Child's Play is kind of a great contender for that spin-off, but I just don't have as much of a calling to it. So I think we're kind of doing hybrid at the end. And so that's why I was thinking, you know what, let's rank the franchise starting from the bottom and just kind of blast through and see where ours lie. Because I have a feeling ours are like completely different in every way.
I think they are, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of fun. So, Trev, I'll let you have the floor and go from bottom to top of the franchise.
All right, but I'm gonna annoy you by being like, this is probably you're like, oh god, but I'm even gonna add in. So you have 8 entries. I'm gonna make it 11 because I'm gonna count each season of the TV show as its own singular thing.
You fucking dork.
Because I think they are, like, each season, as I said, is its own kind of singular story. So I will start.
You should rank the episodes.
I should rank the also when Chucky made an appearance on WCW Nitro and like challenged Rick Steiner to a fight.
Oh my god!
Great clip. Go watch it on YouTube.
Sure.
And also his appearance in Ready Player One. Speaking of Spielberg. So yes, my number 11 is in fact this reboot, and as I said, it's like it. I get why some people like it, but it's just, to me, it's a failure as a Child's Play movie. I think they would have done themselves a better service to just like rename this something with like, Bloody Buddy or something. Oh, that's good, actually. Hold on. Don't release this episode. I got to copyright that. Bloody Buddy, just have it be like that bear one at the end and just like do your own thing completely, So yes, my bottom is the reboot. My number 10 is Child's Play 3, the Military Academy entry. It's fine. It's got some like good like moments, but it's never been like one of my favorites. Now everything after this, like, I do really love. Like, I like Child's Play 3, but I legit like love everything to come. Including number 9 for me, which is Seed of Chucky, which I know is very, very divisive, and I know it's low on here, so people might be like, yeah, Trevor doesn't like Seed of Chucky either. No, I do. I like it a lot more than other people do. I do agree that maybe he was pushing it a little too far with that one, some of the goofy comedy and the meta stuff. Then next for me would be season 2 of Chucky, which I think is the weakest season, even though I still think it's very good. That season takes place primarily at like a school for boys, or no, not just a school for boys, like a religious school that the main characters have been sent at, and Chucky trying to wreak havoc there. My number 7 is Curse of Chucky, the first DTV entry that brings it back to its horror roots and is like very Hitchcockian and comes up with the great idea of let's have Chucky go after a woman in a wheelchair, which is like, I can't believe they took him that long to think of that. Number 6 for me is Child's Play 2, which has maybe the best like finale of any of the movies, the factory sequence, but ultimately is maybe just a little bit too much of a retread of the first one. Number 5 for me, Chucky season 1. The initial season, which is primarily about Chucky trying to turn a kid who has found him into a killer. Very good season. Number 4, Cult of Chucky. I think I'm much more high on this one than a lot of people, I think. This is the last movie so far, all about Chucky, multiple Chuckies loose in an insane asylum. I love how Mancini tried to make this one like really stylistically artsy and kind of like went for this like Argento kind of like European horror look with the design of the asylum and everything. And I love the whole multiple Chucky thing. Number 3, Chucky season 3, the season that just wrapped up, which is definitely the best season. Chucky in the White House. It was great. Chucky loose in the White House, messing with the first family. Great stuff. And then my number 2 is the original Child's Play in 1988. Fantastic horror movie. But my number 1 is still Bride of Chucky. I think Bride of Chucky is like the perfect marriage of everything this series is. It's got the horror, it's got the comedy, introduces Tiffany, great character. Jennifer Tilly rules as both the human Tiffany and the doll. And yeah, it's just a super fun, one of the best like horror comedy slasher movies ever made.
Funnily enough, I think some of ours are similar area in the list, if that makes sense. But the weakest of these movies, I'm just doing the movies, is Child's Play 3. I was not a huge fan of this. A couple lines really got me laughing. I thought it was interesting that it was Lost director Jack Bender's first film. So that one is pretty forgettable. The weakest of the 3 of the main trilogy. Then I actually put Seed of Chucky next in line. I liked it, then I didn't. And I kept going back and forth, kind of debating myself during. And I really did not like that meta Jennifer Tilly casting thing. It was too much like Ocean's 12. I just did not like that.
I'll be interested to see what you think of where they take that in the show.
Okay, interesting. Okay. The next on the list is this remake. I think this remake is, yes, it's Chucky in name only. But as for the reasons I've said, that's what I like about it. The next one is Cult of Chucky. This one, me and you really disagreed on. I know this was high on your list. This is low on mine. You saying it's an Argento European vibe. You can just say it's shockingly cheap. Because it just, especially coming off of Curse, it is just like the look, execution, everything is just so cheap looking, and I just couldn't deal with it. I'm sorry, I didn't want to say I couldn't deal with it. I thought it was totally fine. It wasn't. I didn't hate it by any means. The next one on the list, Child's Play 2. Despite not liking some of the lens and camera choices that do make it look cheap, you get more Chucky, so why not? Like, there's a lot of him in that movie. Then I put the original Child's Play. A lot of fun with that one. Of course, it's iconic. Then Bride of Chucky. A lot of fun. Jennifer Tilly's edition is awesome. And then, yeah, my number one of the franchise is Curse of Chucky. I really, really love this. I think it's a legitimately great horror movie. And really shows you Mancini's growth as a filmmaker, going from Seed to this one. It's the look of it, the feel of it, throwing Chucky in a gothic mansion, a spooky mansion, is great. And then, like you said, going up against Fiona Dourif in a wheelchair is kind of a stroke of genius, really. So, and again, I rewatched that one this morning, and I was like, man, this fucking movie kicks ass. Really love it.
Well, and the other stroke of genius about that one, and this would be considered a spoiler now, except we've already said that this whole series shares a continuity. People have to remember, too, like the amazing feint that movie did of selling itself as like a reboot, and then halfway through revealing, oh no, this is a sequel. This is like continuing the continuity, which was like a great masterstroke on Mancini's part. Yeah,
it was awesome. And then, connecting to the first movie, which was cool.
Yeah, and so like I said, I definitely think you should check out the show, because the show definitely keeps the characters of Curse and Cult going. Cool. And like those story threads, and Fiona Dourif's character continues, and what's been set up at the end of Cult goes forward into the show. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Sweet. I honestly think I will prioritize it. I have seen things that you've posted in our group thread, or just on film Twitter or film Reddit or whatever, especially Chucky in the White House. That sounds hilarious.
And I know, and I think you're a Devon Sawa admirer, fan, and I don't know if you've heard this, but there's a great. This is again, I wouldn't be considered this a spoiler at this point because it's just so out there. But Devon Sawa plays multiple characters in the show.
Oh, cool!
He's become kind of this he's become another part of the main part of the Don Mancini repertory company. And every time they kill him off, he just comes back as another character, and it's very, very funny.
That's one thing too that doesn't get Mancini doesn't get enough credit for, is his loyalty to his casts. And then it goes back to the casts are loyal to him too. Like if I remember correctly, in Cult they do bring back Andy.
Yeah, he's been part of and he's been in the show as well. Yeah,
cool. And it's the same actor.
Same actor. Yeah, same actor from the originals. Yeah, multiple characters from the movies have come back in the show. So,
I love that.
It's a nice nod to the past, and yeah, they keep coming back.
And then again, a testament to who Don Mancini is as a person. You don't usually get repeats of people working with you if you're a piece of shit. So it is cool that a guy that makes a serial killer doll movie that's just a ruthless bastard is actually seems like a really sweet, awesome, cool guy. Which is
and it just seems cool too, because I mean, we see this a lot, right? People who will do one thing and kind of get known for it, and they can't wait to get away from it because they don't want to be just linked to that for their whole life. And I think it speaks something very cool to Don Mancini, that he's totally fine being the Chucky guy for his whole life. That's not to say he hasn't done other stuff. He's worked on Channel Zero. He was a writer on Hannibal, another fantastic TV show.
Yep.
But he's obviously the Chucky guy, and he seems so at peace with that. And I think that, again, speaks to that's because he's found a way to keep reinventing it. and keep it, unique. And he hasn't just remade Child's Play over and over and over again. He's said like, okay, let's make it a comedy. There's been like rumors about even doing a Chucky like musical at some point. He's talking now about trying to finally figure out a way to take Chucky to space. It's like he keeps thinking of ways to reinvent it. Even coming up with this idea like the Devon Sawa idea. That's a new idea for a franchise, right? Let's have the same actor keep coming back as different characters in a comedic way. He's found a way to be at peace with this character because it defines his life, but he's letting it like breathe in ways that some people can't figure out, and I think that speaks to his creative skills for sure.
Yeah, he's not big timing the character, like and so many times we see certain actors or directors or writers seem to, distance is a word that you said, but also feel ashamed that they're associated with this character. Like we see it all the time with like some MCU actors even that only played the character like a few years ago. And it's cool.
But then they're asked, do you want to come back and play Dr. Doom? And they say yes. Not to call out anybody specifically, but
yeah, totally. 100%. So it is cool that Mancini does seem like a cool guy. And I don't, again, I obviously hold his work in higher regard than this movie, because I know this will post on Facebook of some kind, and maybe he listens to it, and he has a teammate in you and an enemy in me. So
no. And I said, even though I'm not a huge fan of this movie, for me, I will fully admit a lot of my problems come from it trying to be something it shouldn't be. And like I said, I honestly think this movie would just have been better suited if it had been its own thing. And I think we maybe wouldn't be having this conversation. And I think ultimately, as I said, I think Megan's a better movie than this. But I think Megan is like the proof that this could have worked maybe if they had gone in a slightly different direction and tried to do their own thing. Because I think the audience was there for that idea, at least at this time. And even as early as Megan, I think maybe now I'm betting there are other people like me that are maybe getting a little sick of it because it's become, I don't know, too omnipresent. But I think they should have had more confidence in their idea to not just cynically slap an IP name on it.
And that's totally it, right? It's in the world of I can't sell this or make that without an established IP associated with it. I think this one, again, got trapped in that way of thinking. So it's flawed by design. Just a real uphill battle, battle. So, but that'll do it for Child's Play 2019. I'm actually surprised we got this much out of this episode, if I'm being totally honest with you.
Now I can finally be done with this movie. Don Mancini is going to announce tomorrow that he's like, okay, we're doing a crossover with my Chucky and the Mark Hamill Chucky. I'm like, oh crap.
You're like, Liz, start the car. Anyway, Summer Surprise rolls on. Next episode, we are looking at 2016's Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, a Tim Burton classic, I've heard.
Well, you got 3 of those words are right. Yeah, it's definitely from Tim Burton. But hey, look, it's a return for us to the YA world. It's been a while.
Yeah.
But it's also very relevant. Tim Burton has Beetlejuice coming, and a lot of people are expecting, predicting, and definitely hoping that will be a Tim Burton comeback. Back like a return of the Tim Burton we all used to love. And then maybe we'll talk about maybe Miss Peregrine was that, and people just didn't realize it at the time. So who knows?
Yeah, a forgotten classic, right? Of course. Follow along at F2FPod. That's at F2, the number 2 FPod on all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. Rate, review, whatever you do. A star rating would be great. And just join the tribe and hit that subscribe, or join the cult. Like the cult of Chucky, I guess. I guess I got one last thing to say to you, Trev, before we wrap up here.
Okay.
You are my buddy until the end, more than a buddy. You are my best friend. I love you more than you'll ever know. I will never let you go.
Oh God, I hope I never hear that again.
4th time?
No!
I find it funny that it started with this like venture capitalist guy that like kind of fucked all the rights up. Like they're purchasing everything, for them to get so scared to say, okay, we're just going to give this to you free of charge. Like, go shop it somewhere else. That's very, that never happens. So
it's also very much like that. You think about how, like what you said, how merchandise Chucky has been since then. It's like that reminder of like when 20th Century Fox told Lucas, like, yeah, you can have the merchandising rights to Star Wars. Like, who cares? You know?
Oh yeah, 100%.